For tomorrow. Okay. You don't have to. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So it's my pleasure to welcome you at the first session of the 9th Annual International Academic Conference on Foresight and STI Policy. So we are beginning with a special workshop on a topic dedicated to smart cities and sustainable urban futures, which is, I guess, relevant for all of us. And we have a set of very distinguished speakers. Actually, it was my kind of a great dream to bring all these people together from different organizations, from different countries, to reflect their great wealth of experience. I wish to, first of all, introduce my colleague, Professor Apiwat Ratanawaraha. He is from Thailand, Chulalongkorn University, and he will be chairing the session with a set of presentations from his team, and they will talk about the Urbanities 4.0 project. So now I pass him the mic to present the session and to moderate it through the first half until the coffee break. Apiwat.
Thank you very much, Ozcan. It is my honor and pleasure to be here. I actually came to Moscow 30 years ago when it was still the USSR. So this is wonderful to be back here and to present to you some of the work that my team, our team in Bangkok have been doing in the past few months. Now, I would like to explain to you why the project was initiated in the first place. Thailand is currently stuck in what you might have heard. It's called the middle income trap. Basically, it's the situation where a country or an economy has been developing relatively fast up to the middle income level. Now, without our own technological capabilities, innovations, and other things that will push us beyond the trap, we're literally stuck. We have been, in this situation for actually, I would say more than 10 years now. So the government of Thailand has been trying to come up with policies, measures, and ideas that will push us beyond the middle income trap. Certainly, innovation is one of them. Now, if you think about innovation, it oftentimes happens in the city. And because our team, we are urban planners, we work in the field of urban planning, we often think the relationship between cities and economic development. So the government of Thailand has been providing funding, research funds, to universities, to research institutes, to come up with ideas that will help Thailand to go beyond the middle income trap. So we came up with this idea about how we can develop the city so that Thailand as a whole can go beyond that. Now, we talk a lot about smart city. We talk a lot about the technologies. But a lot of times in the literature, or even a lot of projects that are happening in Thailand now, oftentimes we talk about the technologies and the infrastructure without thinking much about the life of the people who are actually on the ground. So with the funding from the National Research Council of Thailand, we came up with the idea of looking at the city not just from the technology and infrastructure point of view. We look at how people actually spend their life in the city. The original idea was basically looking at the life of the people in the city or urban life from womb until tomb. meaning from when a person is born until the person dies. So in our team, we have about 7 researchers, and 5 of them are here today. The 7 researchers basically explore how cities and different aspects of urban life are interconnected, from how people make decisions to have a child or not to have a child, whether or not they want to get married, and something like that. And then once we have that, another person will look into how people in the city live. Okay, so that's, you can call it housing, but we want to reframe it in such a way that we look at how people actually lead their life. So one aspect is to live. And then certainly people have to work. So one of our researchers is looking into how people actually work in the city. And this is in the context of Thailand. And in this particular year, we focus on Bangkok. The third aspect is kind of interesting because it's the other extreme of housing, which is when you have no house. So one of our researchers is actually looking into the issue of homeless. And it's a serious issue, not just in Bangkok, but certainly in a lot of cities around the world. So homelessness is one of the issues, one of the aspects of urban life that we're looking into. The third aspect, the first is to live, the second is to work, and the third aspect is homelessness. And the fourth is basically the commute. People have to commute or travel from the house to their jobs, or vice versa, or other places that they need to do. So that's another aspect that we're looking into, how people actually commute in the city. So, and one important thing also, one important activity in the city is to shop. Shopping is a big deal. So another researcher who's presenting today is looking into the current situation of shopping in Bangkok and, of course, the future of shopping as part of the life in Bangkok. And unfortunately, she cannot make it, but another researcher looks into the future of death, how people actually die in the city. Now, you may feel this is such a morbid story, but it's actually quite important as a story. And the future of death is actually it turns out it's actually one of the most fascinating stories and aspects of life that you can do research on in the city. So basically, what we're trying to do at the moment, and our project just started at the beginning of the year, so this is still work in progress. But we are very happy and we are very honored to be here to present the work in progress. The idea behind our work is that we're going to focus on the 2.0 or 3.0 at the moment, which is basically looking at the current situation. Basically, you scan what's going on in terms of foresight, right? And then we are working towards the future, which is the 4.0, what the city life could look like in the context of industrialization 4.0 or other aspects that you can think of. That's the idea. Our project is actually a 3-year project. We started this year looking at the mega city of Bangkok. It's almost the same size as Moscow, 12 to 15 million, depending on how you count. But the second year, we're going to go to the smaller cities in the city, in Thailand, the secondary cities. And then we're going to look into the future of urban life in rural settings, which for us is quite interesting because sometimes we think of urban people living in the city, but the real trend at the moment is that urban people actually live in rural settings. So we want to explore that in our future research. So with my great pleasure, I would like to introduce to our team one by one, and they will come up here in the middle, and you see that there are young researchers. So we're trying to train our researchers to learn about foresight, and as well as how to use the foresight techniques for their urban work. So our first presenter is Panthira Julayanont. She's an architect by training, and her work is about the future of living in Thailand. Now, if you've done future or foresight work, you know that there's so much that one can do, especially in the big, huge topic like urban. So we've done some scoping, and each person has already done the focused scope. And in her case, it's going to be on the future of vertical living. So I would like to give the floor to Panthira.
Okay, thank you very much. Today I'm going to present the work I've done with my research team about vertical living in Thailand. So in order to think about future of living in Bangkok, we did a primary review on living phenomenon in Bangkok to frame the research topic, and found that there are many high-rise residential buildings but built in Bangkok during these 10 years. And population who live in vertical living environment are increasing. The direction of housing development changed horizontal to vertical, obviously, when this rail-based transportation system were developed. The first line of SkyTrain in Bangkok finished just 20 years ago. And now we just have only 4 lines of them from this map. This transportation system gives value to lands and that can access to the station easily, and push real estate developers to build as high density as possible near the station. So not only the real estate developers, Thailand National Housing Authority also changed their direction of housing development for lower income people from build 4 to 5 stories housing to build high-rise residential buildings too. The spread of living in high-rise residential building in this around 10 years among middle income and lower income people has changed the way people live in Bangkok a lot. However, regulations that promote quality of life in this kind of building are not enough now, and this is because it is a very new phenomenon in Bangkok, and this is why I'm focusing on research on the future of vertical living in Bangkok. Try to find the answers of the question, what will vertical living in Bangkok will look like in the future, by scenario approaching. And in order to contribute to policy planning that will improve quality of life for Bangkok people. So before building the scenarios, we have scanned the train environmental, what happened in Bangkok, and what might happen to the future of living in Bangkok through these aspects. The first trends that we have scanned is that the demographic. It showed us there are more population and more urbanization occur in Bangkok, more foreigners, and about the household is getting smaller. We have less nucleus family and more extended family and more people who live alone. The land price also increased rapidly, which gave the rise of the price of condominiums as well. And the living unit in condominium getting smaller and more rental supply. There is a lot of competition among the real estate developers, and a lot of foreign investors come to buy condominium units in Thailand for rent. And Inequality in public house and in Bangkok also pushed the public sector to build a lot of vertical housing too. And also technologies has reduced the cost of construction and drive the number of condominiums to rise rapidly. About the value trends, more Thai people get used to live in vertical living now. And some people also thinking about renting for all of their lifetime instead of buying a home and settling down somewhere. And the orientation of suburbanization changed from living horizontal house along Main Street to living in condominium along train stations, even in suburban area. And also, people who can pay more will live in condominiums in the city center, and who can pay less will live further from their workplace. And emerging trends, global trends are emerging in Bangkok and going to be an important drivers of the change of vertical living too. For example, digitalization, sharing economy that give rise to Airbnb, and also aging society and climate change that make people concerned more about sustainable development in Bangkok. So all of these are the result of my scanning, and after scanning all trends that are going to change the future of vertical living in Bangkok, we summarize them into 5 issues by thinking what is going to happen or needs to be concerned in the future if these trends continue as they are today as usual. The first issue is that aging society and aging condominiums. In the future, when the building gets old and condominium will have a lot of empty old rooms, because some people who buy condominiums for investment have to sell them unexpectedly in lower price. And there will be a lot of elderlies who have to survive alone in the old condominium with a lot of empty living units. And they cannot even earn the large number of money to renovate the whole large building. And the next trend is renting is a new normal. As condominium prices have become higher, people will choose to rent rather than buying the room. And many people who own room in condominium will choose to lend them in shorter term to tourists rather than long-term rental for people who really work and need a shelter in Bangkok. In this situation, condominiums will have a lot of empty room for rent together with some room where people live as a home. And this will separate the usage from the ownership, and which is require a new way of maintenance and management for residential buildings in Bangkok. The next one is the rail-based suburbanization. Many middle-income people will move to suburban and live in condominium near the station instead of buying a detached town with garden. And people who can pay less will have to live further in lower grade of condominium without any common facilities. And in some suburban area where cheaper condominiums are located, people will live in the area that do not have enough public facilities for people to use when necessary. People will have to live in smaller rooms. When they have children, the family have to live in crowded conditions like this. And if someone wants to have family and stay in the city, their children will grow up in a different way from the past. They will have less chance to play outdoor, which will affect their development of social skill. Also, the small room without good kitchen in Bangkok now do not allow parents to cook quality food for their kids, and they have no choice but to buy from the outside, from the restaurant for the children. So they cannot say that food are good enough for their kids, and it will affect the kids' health. This kind of key issue as a baseline topic to be concerned in order to developing strategic planning for quality of living in Bangkok. So having these 5 points in mind, we develop 4 future scenarios of vertical living in Bangkok by concerning about the change of 2 key drivers. The first key drivers that I have concern about is the attitude of government toward right to housing. We will think about the scenarios when government think that housing is a welfare, and the scenarios that government think that housing is a product. The second key drivers that I will take in the scenarios building is the character of urban household. On the one hand, I would think about the scenario with the future scenario when there are more multi-generation families live together in condominiums. And on the other hand, we will think that more people in Bangkok will stay single and live alone without children. So we cross these two axes to build these four scenarios of living. The first one is everything are mixed and integrated. And the second one is the scenario that provided shelter. The shelter are provided for all individuals by public. And the third scenario is the select your own dress. The fourth one is the pay for families members. I will go through quickly for each scenario. The first one is the mixed income families in public housing scenario. The building will build under the concept of skeleton and infill. So the public sector can reduce the cost of construction, and the infill will depends on the income of each families that will come to live in the buildings. And the long-term ownership are also promoted. The common facilities in this scenario will be designed integrated with all of the public facilities around the housing complex. And there will be many public space for social interactions in the neighborhood. And the life of people will be like multi-generation will live together, and elderly and kids can interact with their neighbors. And the second scenario, The second scenario is the scenarios about the single who live in public housing. It's like the housing will be designed like modular design and prefabricated shelter for one or two persons to live. And the shelter are designed for just minimum needs. In some cases, provided shelter can be installed in underused space in the city, such as under the highway. And common facility in this scenario will have only facilities for basic needs, such as laundry room or share bathroom or sometimes share kitchen. And in this case, living unit will just be a place for sleep, and people do other activities outside their house. And maybe the digital platform will help them to share stuff and space they need with others because their houses are very small. And many elderly also live in this kind of small room too. The third scenario is about select your own dress. It's like selecting your dress from any fashion shops. If you can pay more, you can live in a better quality of, in the better house and with better quality of common facilities. And people and also when this kind of scenarios are the scenarios that all the housing are products. So developer want to sell their product as soon as possible, and that's make the foreigners come to own a lot of rooms in the condominiums. So the common facilities for these scenarios will be limited in the size because the development are just on the land of that private developer. And in luxury condominiums will have high quality of common and green space. Life of people here include the elderly will be a life that live alone in the units. And maybe some technologies are introduced to use as a sensing and make the room be more safer and more secure. And in this case, people who want to have children or kids have to move out from the urban area because there are no room for them. The last scenario is that pay for family members. In this scenario, developers provide many types of units for family, and small rooms in existing condominium now are combined and resale for family living. Some luxury condominiums also have a big veranda of private garden detached to the living unit, and some family rent an empty room in their unit for tourists. The common facilities in this scenario also not diverse in type as well. And maybe sometime in luxury condominium, there are spatial facility for kids and elderlies, but just in expensive condominium. Families that can pay more will have a good living quality, but those who cannot pay will live in crowded condition, far away from any public facilities in the city centers. So these are the 4 scenarios that I have thought about in now, and we are going to work more on the scenarios to see how what kind of futures can happen for Bangkok vertical living.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, okay, I guess. Okay. So, as we're preparing for the next speaker, as I mentioned earlier, we just started this project at the beginning of the year, and we're working on the scenarios, and then we'll do, the usual backcasting and strategic planning and other strategies that we can propose to the Thai government. Now, the second speaker, he's actually a anthropologist, sociologist. And his work has been primarily on the homeless situation in Thailand. So I asked Anuk to present the work that he's done for our project and look into the future of homelessness and the vulnerable people in Bangkok.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Apiwat. Today I will present you about the future of homelessness and the urban vulnerable in Bangkok. I will start that the question is why homelessness is important. Homelessness is one of the most vulnerable conditions in human life in the city. It is linked not only to the housing instability, but also linked with income instability, job insecurity, and the health risk. Present study about the homelessness have shown that factors leading to the homelessness are different depending on social context. However, the factor can be classified in 4 dimensions. The first one is about the economic structure. The second one is social structure. The third one is the family structure. And the fourth one is about the policy or the state policy, about the welfare, something like this. This presentation attempts to draw a scenario of entering homelessness in Bangkok and its connection to change episode in socio-economic, political policy, worldview, and the environmental factors. For the methodology and analytical framework, I am also used in the same way with the Panthira, and I will skip it. I will show you about the trend in the future that will impact the homelessness in the future. The first trend is about the demographic and social trend. Social and demographic trends are factors that have an impact on the homelessness and entry into homelessness. Aging society is one of the most important factors. For the aging society or the change in age structure of society become an aging one result in having more dependent. Insufficient government support, ineffective care from family and community, and stress among family that must care for the elderly. Statistics from the National Statistical Office of Thailand show that the ratio of elderly dependent, defined as the proportion between the elderly and the working age population, increased from 18% in 2011 to about 25% in 2017. In the same way, the percentage of the elderly living alone increased from nearly 9%. From the nearly 9% in 2014 to 10% in 2017. The current situation is a trend that will shape homelessness and vulnerability of urban dwellers. And about the change in housing characteristics is also the important factor. Living alone, a trend that is likely to increase, lack of family support or relative support that act as a social safety net, are the situation that lead to the vulnerability and risk of becoming homeless. Statistics from the National Statistical Office of Thailand reveal that from 2007 to 2015, one-person households in Thailand almost doubled, from around 2 million in 2007 to 4 million in 2015.
So the past year was a Thai year, actually.
Yeah. The second trend is technological trend. For the technological trend, is also impact for the homelessness is both positive and negative. The first one is technology disruption. The transition into digital age, artificial intelligence or AI, and automation affect job demand and unemployment in unskilled and semi-skilled labor. This is a trend that is going to influence homelessness, enter into homelessness, and increase vulnerability in the urban dweller. A report from the ILO or International Labour Organization indicates that the change is going to have a strong impact on ASEAN labor, especially in automotive and textile industry, where robots, automation, and 3D printing could replace human labor. The second one is big data analytics. It is a positive impact for the homeless people and the homelessness. Development of big data analytics is likely to build a system that prevents entry into homelessness. Big data could assist government and civil society that work on homelessness and the vulnerable to effective prevent entry into homelessness and gain access to those vulnerable to homelessness. The third trend is economic trend. Rapid economic change both in terms of economic structure and mode of production, economic inequality and financial crisis, and increase in rental and housing price are the trends that are going to affect homelessness and entry into homelessness in the future. The first one is change in economic structure and financial crisis. The vulnerable social group in the city are the richest one. Change in economic structure and financial crisis force urban labor, particularly the unskilled and semi-skilled labor, to undertake swift change and lead to enter homelessness in the demographic lack capital and social safety net, resulting is having lower resilience toward economic change. The second one is the housing price and urban inequality. Economic inequality in urban areas determine the cost of living. The higher cost of living will vary inversely with income hindered the vulnerable from living a quality life, drive them towards risk of homelessness and prevent the exit from homelessness. In the same way, increase in land, housing, and rental price from economic development and speculation is going to significantly impact housing inaccessibility and loss of housing in those who subsidize on low income, which is also leads to enter into homelessness. And the final trend is about the value. The level of hospitality, care for family member and relative and community member and charity are linked to social safety net that act as a prevention of entry into homelessness. Such value and worldview are likely to diminish, and this is going to affect the entry into homelessness. The trend and driver analysis from literature review on homelessness and entry into homelessness, horizon scanning, and future view workshop lead to the scenario building of future of homelessness as in this slide. I separate the scenario in 4 scenarios. As I show you. The first one is isolation and apathy from society. Entry into homelessness and homeless population will increase because the unskilled, semi-skilled informal labor lack career and financial stability and have low resilience to socio-economic change. In addition, more one-person households are going to affect the overall social safety net. At the same time, society will not be able to support this vulnerable group because of their isolation, worldview, and value of apartheid in society. In this scenario, if government or civil society can provide support or act as a social safety net, the entry into homelessness might lower. The second scenario is isolation in the embrace of society. Even though the one-person households might increase, if society and community can act as a social safety net, the homeless population will not increase as much as in the first scenario that I showed you. The homeless will receive support from society. Nevertheless, the homeless and those vulnerable to homelessness will increase because one-person households and aging population who have low resilience to both individual and macro socio-economic change. The third scenario is a apathetic society with someone to lean on. In this scenario, the increase in one-person households is not high, but the worldview toward the urban space change. Sense of community will weaken, and this will result in the lack of social safety nets for the homeless living in the public space and in shelter. Similarly, family homelessness might increase, or there will be driver from family violence or pressure that force people to enter homelessness. However, in this scenario, if government and the civil society can create a welfare to the repressed care from community, homelessness will not increase substantially. And the final scenario is about in the embrace of society and the people. In this scenario, homelessness and entry into homelessness will lessen considerable because people will still live in the family households, and the society hospitable will still thrive. The society is willing to support and assist the vulnerable. Community can create effective homelessness preventive system and family care for their members. This will result in comprehensive social safety net for all. And this is my work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Even though there aren't a lot of, well, you can say there aren't a lot of homeless people in Thailand, it's quite substantial in the sense that you still see homeless people, because it's the importance or the significance of this story is actually not about the number of homelessness, but the fact that there are still homeless people in our cities. So that's why Anuk's work has been quite well received back home, and people are very curious about what the futures of homelessness could be for Bangkok. Now, the third presenter today, Wan, she's actually originally an architect, but she now claims herself a data scientist. But her interest now is related to the future of work. And after we've done some scoping exercises, her research focuses on the service work in the city. Wan.
Thank you so much. So I would like to start sort of by why service work in the city. Bangkok itself grew out of industrialization. We used to have a lot of factories, but now because the sort of economic growth and everything, a lot of companies, headquarters and everything is sort of packed around Bangkok. And so the city itself is really changing towards having more service work. And by service, I mean both, people working on computers, providing professional services, but also because these professional service workers also have the capacity to hire a lot of people to help with, household work and things like that. So it also sort of help increase the basic workers as well. So as usual, the strategic foresight framework that I use is sort of the scope, scan, scenarios, and plan, and I'll go through all of them in this presentation. The first one, scope, I used the future of service work, and then it's in Bangkok, Thailand, and then we looked into the next 10 to 20 years. In terms of the future itself, we talked about the fourth industrial revolution quite a lot. And there's also the third globalization that we are currently on. Especially what Ajahn Apiwat has talked about earlier was the Thailand 4.0 plan. That's sort of the strategic plan nationwide that's trying to sort of uplift Thailand across sort of the middle income gap. But in terms of service work, the three things that are affecting the work itself is gig economy, platform economy, and sort of automation. And I'll go a little bit into them later on. And then we looked into both basic and advanced services in the next 20 years through the lens of city planning in Bangkok, Thailand. With the scanning, I used sort of three things that I sort of applied to. The first is the system map. The second is trying to look at other trends that are sort of beyond the map itself. And then the last one is sort of putting all these trends together through a driver evaluation matrix. If we looked into the first sort of trend is the growth of service sector in urban areas, and that's sort of what we've been seeing in Bangkok itself. And the relation between the advanced service workers and basic service workers is really clear, right? We see that the more advanced service workers we have in the cities, the more basic service workers are sort of present to provide other services to the advanced service. For example, household cleaners, guards, security guards, other vendors, say hairdressers and things like that. The second one is sort of looking into the market competitions and lean businesses. Bangkok itself is sort of growing into sort of this global city. It receives a lot of competitions from outside of Bangkok itself. And that sort of put pressures on these companies to sort of become smaller and be more competitive at a global market. And so there's a lot of, we were seeing a lot of layoffs and things like that, and that's sort of happening at the moment as well. The third pressure that is put on a lot of workers is, aging society that Panthira has talked about earlier. With the aging society, there's also sort of one person is now having to take care of at least two people in their families, not including the house itself that, needs maintenance and cleaning and things like that. And so that put pressure on the time per day for each person, but also putting pressure on this sort of financial to everyone as well, because if they don't have the time to take care of these people, then they need to hire people, right? And then we have the platform businesses that starts to come into the picture. They sort of comes in to provide efficiency of hiring. And we are seeing that more and more today in Bangkok as well. Now, sort of outside of the system maps that we see, there's also this value that's changing as well. The meaning of stable jobs, if I looked into when my parents were working, the stable job sort of comes with large corporations or working with the government. But now with the high competition economy and everything, these companies can go down, and they do sometimes lay off people whose skills are no longer matched with the company's goals. And so if we think about that in terms of gig economy right now, a lot of gig workers work multiple jobs at a time. And they are also utilizing their different skills across the board. And they, in a way, diversifying their income sources. And so in many sense, stable jobs in today's world could be that, you diversify a lot of your activities out. And then no matter if one job goes down, then you have the rest that's still sort of bringing you income. There's also automation. It's still a debate whether, really robots, if they can replace service work. A lot of times we think we're sort of seeing that, the robots can do a lot more than what people can do. But then on the other hand, there's this sensibility that people have over robots, that they can't achieve that yet. But if we look at the trends, this sort of two axes of possibilities still exist. Whether we fancy efficiency robots, or do we fancy more of this humanized sensibility that people can bring? And then lastly is the social welfare factor that's sort of there lingering around. In Bangkok itself, or Thailand overall, informality is everything. You see informality more, maybe perhaps I could say like 50% of the jobs that we have, a lot of the people are working in the informal sector. But that sort of changed a bit with gig economy coming in. It puts this sort of new facelift fancy name to it, that brings in sort of this modernized kind of informality. But with social welfare, or without rather, without social welfare that we lack, people are actually left to sort of struggle to survive by themselves. The only safety net that they would have is their savings. We do have some healthcare services, but that's sort of the extent of it that we have right now. And we still don't know in which way do the governments want to go towards. After looking at all of the trends, and these are a lot more than what I've discussed earlier, we have this sort of two things that I want to mention is the automation and formalization. And that's sort of at the high impact and high uncertainty axes. And so I want to use these two to provide the 2x2 matrix scenarios. One is on self-reliance and welfare state, and another is sort of in the human rocks and robot rules. With the two axes, I then sort of see how, the situation will become for the workers. The first one, I'll discuss lone wolves, and then I'll go towards the stray dogs and then pet dogs. The lone wolves is very similar to what we have right now. Everyone's sort of like, they have the edge of working different jobs and things like that, but then they rely on their own savings to provide for themselves. In terms of the cityscape, it's actually a lot very, very bustling. People move around in the cities a lot more. They don't just go to work from 9 to 5. But they do have all around the cities. And so it sort of diversify the CBDs out into different places as well. And then stray dogs scenario where if you think about having robots and then everyone still relies on themselves, the robots can easily take over jobs like guards, security guards. Household maids are sort of becoming more vulnerable right now. And that's a possibility as well, that these jobs, the basic workers' jobs, are going to be replaced by robots. And that means that they won't have other jobs to go to because, the government doesn't take care of them. They don't have any other source of income. And their competitions in the service market will be much, much higher than what it is now. And so there's potential that they become a stray dogs to the society. And that's sort of pose other kind of unrest, social unrest and things like that. The third one is pet dogs. And if we look into, if the government really provides welfare to everyone and then robots really rules, we are sort of not having to do anything, right? We can, just sit around and then there are robots, and the government also take care of us, especially for basic service workers. It's pretty easily, you can become complacent to a lot of the things that are going on. And so in a sense, the advanced service workers might get upset because, they're paying taxes and things like that. So it's sort of the imbalance between the two groups. And then lastly is the wolf packs scenarios where you really see that humans still have the edge in the service work that we do. And then the government also provides some sort of welfare to take care of those who fall through and create sort of this safety nets to give to the people. And so in terms of the cityscapes itself, it's really bustling is really nice. And then the public spaces are also programmed with adaptive use because people are moving a lot and working in a lot of jobs, providing different parts into the wolf packs that we sort of think about. And then lastly, I looked into policy implications, and I sort of break it down to 5 different things. The first one is platform economy is sort of the new informality that we can see today, and it's sort of providing this opportunities for the government to say, hey, if we want to tackle informality, you can tackle both at the sort of basic workers and also the advanced workers. Secondly, with gig economy, it can be a leverage for equality, meaning that it provides more stable jobs and people can actually earn a lot of income from diversifying their income sources. Third is flexible jobs is really resilient life, just like I said earlier. The fourth is mobile jobs and in the immobile city. And this sort of implicates the way we plan cities. We used to plan cities in terms of very stable, very sort of stoic kind of way. But people move a lot more in the future. So we'll have to think about city planning in a different way. And the fifth one is sort of public areas are now becoming a new office space. We can see the revival of libraries, even parks and things like that. And that's really bringing new face to the public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. So now that we've heard about the futures of living, homelessness, and work, service work in Bangkok, I'm sure some of you have been to Bangkok, so you know traffic jam is much worse than Moscow. But there's one interesting thing I think about mobility in Bangkok, which you don't see a lot here in Moscow, is the prevalence of motorcycles. And Piam Suk, who's actually a transportation planner, has done some work related to the futures of motorcycle riding in Bangkok.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My topic, the futures of urban mobility in Bangkok, focusing on the role of motorcycle in 2040. This is the content of my presentation today. And start with the evolution of human transportation can be viewed at the beginning of the walking or horse car city, and followed by the automobile transit, and arriving the present day, the integrated mobility, and now ride-hailing service is considered as the disruptive transportation innovation, and it is becoming the really essential for our life. And for the case of Bangkok, ride-hailing service is becoming very popular, and they play the key role in the transportation system in the Bangkok in terms of motorcycle use for both passenger and goods service. Delivery service. So this time we can call Bangkok is become the motorcycle era for transportation. And due to the superblock and hyper congestion, so the motorcycle taxi has been the essential element for the urban transportation system in Bangkok for several decades. They play the 3 key roles in the transportation system. The first one, the short haul informal service. And the second one, long distance commuter mode. And the last one, last mile delivery service. And this is the driver of change affecting the future of the role of motorcycle, particularly for the technology scanning. 5 trends of future transportation system can be concluded. The first one, the mobility on demand, private car for the public service. And the second one, autonomous vehicle. And the connected vehicle when the car communicates with everything and everyone. And the first one, the electric vehicle, improving urban mobility with a bus. And the last one, informal transportation, local transport takes over public transport. So we can conclude the future characteristic of the urban transportation, including individual car ownership as one form of multimodal on-demand and shared transport, more consumer choice and many service levels, public and private transit operating in parallel, and on-demand connected system that use data to unlock efficiency. So from the review literature and focus group discussion, so we can conclude the trend of the future of urban mobility in Bangkok. 5 trends. The first one, Bangkok motorcycles are here to stay. So the continuing the lack of the integration between land use and transportation make the motorcycle taxi indispensable as the feeder mode for public transportation. So you can see the increasing of the motorcycle in each year, more than 100,000 motorcycles for every year. So totally we have the motorcycle in Bangkok now 3.5 million. And the second one, the growing e-commerce, booming motorcycle. So the exponential growth of all almost demand create the huge demand of the ride-hailing service, and the fleet of motorcycle will become like a army end of the gig economy and sharing economy. And the new transport mode, new regulation. So almost the motorcycle taxi services in Bangkok are organized as the so-called WINs. So WINs located everywhere that have a demand, and now they have a conflict between ride-hailing service and motorcycle taxi WIN. So Thai Ministry of Transport is preparing to create a legal environment for operation of ride-hailing service. And new vehicle, new infrastructure. So it is anticipated that new generation of Thais will increase demand for electric power vehicle, including a motorcycle. And Thai is preparing for the EV vehicle by developing the supportive infrastructure and technology. For example, the public battery charging station. And the last one, new population, new travel demand. So the population of the Greater Bangkok will be rise to 19 million in 2037. So Thai population is rapidly becoming the aging society, and while the younger cohort are becoming more individualistic. So it means the increasing demand for the door-to-door delivery of goods and services. So from the review literature and the focus group discussion, so finally for the scenario planning, 4 influencing areas were selected, including urban transportation system, travel behavior, transportation, infrastructure, and urban mobility landscape, and 4, quality of life. So the aspect for the urban transportation system, we're focusing on what is the future of motorcycle taxi WIN and the public transportation system. And for the travel behavior, we're focusing on the type of the travel, like a short or long distance, and about the mode share in the Bangkok. And for the urban mobility landscape, like whether or not we need to build a motorcycle lane and ride-hailing service station, and also the EV station. And for the last one, quality of life, we're focusing on the air pollution, accident rate, and health. So from the focus group discussion, finally, the four scenario emerging under the two key driver, integrated public transport system and the formalization of informal system. So this is the first scenario for the future roles of motorcycle. The scenario one, motorcycle as a urban. This scenario under the situation that all the public transportation mode already and informal transportation system already formal. So the key issue is the private sector operate for high side of the related agency to support in public transport for the urban transportation system. There will be a platform for the private sector transportation, and motorcycle will be used as a form of collective mobility and serve as the feeder mode for the public transport. And a ride-hailing service will cover in the zone, and motorcycle taxi will become the charging station for the EV, and short distance trips reduce the number of motorcycle accidents. And scenario two, motorcycle as a worker ants. So this scenario, there will be the intense competition among the ride-hailing companies. So ride-hailing application will become the competitor for the public mass transit, and user of the ride-hailing application are likely to increase exponentially, and a lot of charging EV station become the parking for the rotation fleet of motorcycle delivery. And the last one, the motorcycle driver will experience increased income option from the variety and competition of the ride-hailing company. And the third scenario, motorcycle as a horse racing. There is an intense competition between the cooperative motorcycle taxi and ride-hailing application company. The government will provide support and oversight by organizing the motorcycle taxi win into area-based cooperatives. Motorcycle taxi driver from different ride-hailing application companies would compete for commuter, and there would need to be more motorcycle only lane on the main road, and fierce competition could result in more accident in this scenario. And the last one, motorcycle as a god of death. So this scenario, the government do not attempt to control the market in order to allow the free market. So the ride-hailing application company and the motorcycle taxi cooperatives would compete largely, that we call cutthroat competition. The motorcycle for hire become a hybrid mode which can both individual mobility, active mobility, and there will be the increasing of the motorcycle taxi along the spoke of mass transit station, and cycle trip will be the long distance. So with the inherent risk and harm to health for both and driver. So presentation, thank you.
Thank you. So is our unique future of Bangkok. It's probably not the safest mode of transport. When you go to Thailand, you should try. Is Ponsan. He's looking into the futures of shopping, but particularly grocery shopping in Bangkok. And the effect of e-commerce and everything will be considered in his work. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Ponsan. I'm working on the future of grocery shopping, especially in case of Thailand. Grocery is a good example of necessity goods that purchasing decision is made by economic, social, and environmental condition of consumers. So grocery shopping is a phenomenon that we can observe how urban lifestyles have been shifting from time to time. If we focus on evolution of shopping in urban area, it's found that we have experienced the era of conflict between traditional trade and modern trade. And now the market share of e-commerce is still growing continuously, and it's said that the next wave of shopping is online-offline integration. From the review process, I found that the global trend of urban shopping nowadays are multifunctional outlet, e-commerce, and mobile shopping service. These are changing commercial landscape and creating new urban lifestyles. And here are some the details of those trends. The first one is multifunctional outlet. I gave the example of the convenience store. In Thailand, there is around 14,000 branches of convenience store. And the role of convenience store is getting bigger to our daily lives. Now, in convenience stores, they provide many services such as banking, pharmacy, homemade bakery, so people use them more frequently than any other urban facilities. As you can see in the picture, it's in India, not Thailand, but people use the space in convenience store as a cafe or even a bar to chat with their friends. E-commerce is also the biggest global trend for shopping issue. E-commerce enables people to shop from anywhere, anytime they want. We can say now that there is nothing that you cannot buy from e-commerce. We can have goods from China bringing to your home within 1 week. E-commerce is not good only for B2P, business-to-people business, but it can be also used to support people-to-people business to strengthen SMEs, either in urban and rural area. The third trend is the mobile shopping service in the area of delivery platform. The development of delivery service is one of the key factors that make e-commerce successful. In Thailand, after private companies such as Curry Express or JNT come to the delivery business, the ratio of e-commerce has been much increasing recent. Now there are many types of service available, and in the future, technologies such as drone may change the situation again, but anyway, consumers will have many choices to make their life easier. And in the same trend, there is another phenomenon called mobile grocery stores. E-commerce will not replace all of the retail categories. In Thailand, there are some new businesses that bring fresh food and daily use things to people in rural area and local communities. Not only SMEs, big companies also start participating in this kind of business, as you see in the picture in the right hand. Some people now use this type of service instead of going to the traditional marketplace. And this is the list of relating issues categorized in Steve V. Because shopping is economic activity, economic drivers affect quite much, as well as technology and social ones. Major things are such as household pattern, digital lifestyles, automation, data connectivity, digital economy, urban logistics, SMEs, and etc. And for scenario building, I chose two axes from those issues. The one is automation, and the second one is SMEs. Automation is said to change shopping ecosystem so much, and it has uncertainty also. I set it axis as a machine-based services and human versus human-based services. SMEs is claimed to have more role in urban community in the future, but if we look at the situation now, it's not promised. Big corporates put many efforts to expand variation of their business. So I set this axis as market by big corporates versus market by group of SMEs. And I have created 2x2 scenario diagram and divided into 4 different scenarios, like I will explain about each one later. And these are scopes of discussion in each scenario. How do we do offline shopping in the future? How do we do online shopping? How does the logistics system look like? How do we pay? How do people with limitations such as mobility or internet literacy do their shopping? How do condominium residents do their shopping? And how do people in urban local communities do their shopping? For the first scenario, I call that the competition of efficiency is the state of machine-based service coexists with market by big corporates. There is almost no human worker in the stores. People purchase goods from machines. Marketplace is replaced by ordering machine. Online shopping is very general in this state. People purchase daily goods from channel of big corporates. Automated drone delivery is very common. It's used for delivery service of goods, both purchase offline and online. Drone delivery business is growing rapidly. And e-payment is very common. It's hard to find cash in the city. Big corporates know what people want and they can completely control market supply. Finally, they create trends of consumption. There are new jobs helping people with limitations to do their shopping also. For the second scenario, I call this competition of diversity. It's the mix of machine-based services and market by network of SMEs. In this scenario, there are still human workers in stores, especially ones operated by SMEs. Marketplace is partly replaced by machine or SME network or cooperative. Online shopping is quite general in this scenario. There are more variety of goods than those in stores. People like to purchase alternative goods from the producers and sometimes very far away. Automated logistics network is developed. Logistics companies are integrated system to bring goods anywhere automatically and rapidly. Commerce platform companies are growing. There are many SME both in urban and rural areas and a lot of alternative goods in the market. SMEs with good marketing strategies only survive. Variation of consumption is recognized, local knowledges are conserved and utilized, and consumers take time to find what they really want. For the third scenario, I call it competition of hospitality. It's the mix of human-based service and market by network of SMEs. In this scenario, most stores are serviced by human workers. Retailers with service are popular, like a restaurant and cafe with the service. Marketing focus on services, craft and rural products are premium goods for people. Online shopping is very common. Added service can be found only local SME in case of buy online and pick up in store. Delivery jobs increase in this scenario. E-payment and cash coexist. Loyalty programs are created. Consumer data is mainly used to customize services. Customers use service and face-to-face combination to find what they want, and people with limitations do their shopping easily due to various services provided, but they have to pay the extra fee. And mobile grocery stores increase to community and vertical livings. And the last one, I call this one competition of customization. Is the scenario that created by human-based service and market by big corporates. Only franchise stores survive and they are still serviced by human workers. Traditional marketplace is dying in stage. Online shopping is common more, but people expect added services. Therefore, big click and buy online and pick up in the store become normal. Delivery jobs increase. In urban areas, delivery demands grow. Loyalty programs are used to attract customers besides services at the store. Consumers get advantages from several big companies' competition, but variety of goods decreases. People get standardized service wherever they live, and big corporates also have mobile grocery store as one of their outlet channels. And these scenarios are actually underdeveloped, and we are planning to have workshops to verify the result and to make them clearer in several months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So these are 5 presentations that have been basically developed out of our work in progress on the futures of Thai urban life. We have about 7 minutes or so for questions or comments. May I open this to the floor, please? No questions? Joe, and then two in the back. Sorry, yes. So, Joe, please, and then the lady.
I think it was very interesting to listen. It was very interesting to listen to investigations of young scientists from Thailand. And my question is about the base of these investigations. So there are several possibilities. One of them is the statistical database. The second is considering the big amount of literature on this question. And the third is their own investigations and just observations of the project. And
so may I take a few questions and then I'll answer them right away. Joe, please, and then someone in the back.
Very quick question. So it's very interesting. You have these great scenarios, and then what? What do you do with the scenarios?
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you guys for your presentation. I have a very specific question. It's from the labor market. So you mentioned that gig economy is a social leverage, right? But don't you think it can be a disadvantage as well?
I'll answer the two questions, and then Juan can answer the third question. So regarding the data and the statistics, so we have basically collected the data on these trends. I would say most of the trends presented are quite well supported by the data. So that's one. The second one, as we analyze the trends, we also involve stakeholders in the process. As Ponsan mentioned at the end of his presentation, we're still working on this. So we are still going to do a few a few rounds of workshops with key stakeholders in each particular aspect. So there will be at least 3 or 4 workshops for each particular topic. So these are just the sort of, the things that the research teams working together with some interviews and some stakeholders and came up with these ideas. We still need to verify them in terms of whether the stakeholders out there will agree with us. Now, scenarios, then what? So we just started this project, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the year. So the next step is to basically verify the stakeholders with the verify the scenarios with the stakeholders. Then after that, we'll do backcasting, basically. So, the scenarios will be verified, and then with the stakeholders, we'll develop the policies and measures that will basically identify the gaps for research and for policies. So it's still going to be, another 1 or 2 years before we get into the real projects that we can work on. But so far, we have some concrete ideas that we have already proposed to the government. Juan, would you like to answer the third question about the gig economy, please?
Hi, sure, thank you. So in terms of the disadvantage of gig economy, I think there is for sure. One thing that I see is that gig economy is sort of the phenomenon that may have stemmed from sort of people not having enough salary. That means that they need to find other jobs to compensate for the expenses that they need to pay. But what I meant by opportunities is sort of it's an opportunity for the government to really see informality as sort of this advantage and really do something about it. So it's sort of this opportunity that they can, formalize, and it would benefit, people at both ends of the labor market.
So we have about 2 minutes more, maybe for one more question. Please. Thank you. So the idea behind this project is actually a 3-year project. So this year we started with Bangkok, and next year we'll go to the secondary cities in Thailand, and the 3rd year we'll go into the smaller villages in Thailand and looking whether some of the trends and the drivers and scenarios will be applicable. We're not thinking beyond Thailand yet at the moment, but that could be an interesting, project to do if we get partners to compare all these trends. Thank you. Alex.
Thank you very much for a very nice set of presentations. My question is about who is the client and how the results you achieved.
The client is actually the National Research Council of Thailand. The idea behind this research project is that, first, what kind of research topics they can fund in the future. Because so far, research directions in Thailand have been dominated by existing problems. But they want to, move beyond the existing problems. So they hope that our research at least will help identify what kinds of research topics they should fund for the future. But at the same time, because it's called a spearhead policy-oriented research project, we actually are supposed to work with direct clients. Say each researcher has identified the clients who are primarily policy agencies, basically. Say, Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Labor, and things like that. So we're supposed to, through the process of identifying the topics, we have to identify the stakeholders will adopt what we have identified as the key areas. All right, so we're still here. So hopefully we can discuss. All right, last question.
Curiosity. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the presenters. They are doing a wonderful job in terms of going in depth into the social forces, economic forces that are shaping the future of living in many ways and how to live in a city such as Bangkok and outside Bangkok. So congratulations to all of you. This is going to be paid off. As exactly you said. But my curiosity is mainly linked to, please tell me who is actually each one of the presenters in terms of background. In my mind, they were architects, sociologists, economists, or...
just so quickly, yeah? So starting with Panthira, right? If you could stand up. She's trained as an architect, so she's an architect, right? But she's more than that. I mean, she's so one of the objectives of this research program is actually to train young researchers into the Foresight field. These are actually people who hadn't done anything related to Foresight up until the end of last year.
Wonderful.
Okay, so Anuk, he's an anthropologist, sociologist, working with society group activist. Wan, she used to be an architect, but she did quite a bit of, social entrepreneurship. Now an urban planner, but she does a lot of Python programming, data science. Piam Suk, she was a geographer, but now she's urban planner teaching transportation planning. And Ponsan was an urban engineer and teaching urban planning and urban design. So these are the backgrounds.
Wonderful
and I
group.
myself is
Wonderful
a random
group.
person. So, all right. So I don't want to take too much of your time for your coffee break, but we're here for the whole conference. So please give us advice. Thank you very much.